Hey now, good morning PSW staff, clients, friends. Joining us for Monday film scoring class. Welcome. Monday film scoring, of course, is when we look at a scene from a film and I take out the music and you come up with your own film score, your own, the best piece. And you guys know how this is. And if you're new, please play along. It's very fun. There's a prize. It's good problem solving. It's fun. Fun for the kids. Everybody wins in this, so please play along. You guys did a great job with King Kong on Friday. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully it wasn't too scary, that 18-inch monster. Hope it was okay for you guys. Today we're going to do nothing like King Kong. This is going to be a whole new assignment and thing that I have planned for you. So, but it's going to be highly romantic and very lovely. I think you're going to really like this. Today we're going to be looking at the 1985 film A Room with a View. A Room with a View is a British romantic film. It's a period film directed by James Ivory and produced by his partner and personal partner, Ishmael Merchant. Merchant and Ivory, you've probably heard of them. They did a lot of films in the 80s and 90s, and they were kind of the first Downton Abbey. Everyone knows Downton Abbey now. I've never seen it, but I mean, I know a lot of, they were kind of doing this in the 80s a little bit. And they worked also with a wonderful Indian woman screenwriter, Ruth Power Jabala. And they did a lot of period famous films together. The movie is based on E.M. Forster's novel from 1908. Although he wrote it when he was about 22, about 8 years earlier, around 1901 or so. And it stars Helena Bonham Carter, who is a super famous movie star now, but this was her first movie. And Julian Sands as George, who's also famous, along with Maggie Smith and Denholm Elliott, Daniel Day-Lewis, Judi Dench, Simon Callow. They're huge actors now, but this was kind of, a lot of them got their start in this film. And this film really made Merchant and Ivory super famous in a universal way. The budget was $3 million, but it made $21 million. And it was nominated for Best Picture at the 59th Academy Awards. But it did win Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, and Best Costume Design. So this is 1985. What other movies? Two movies that we've looked at actually came out this year. Back to the Future, we did a class on, and Out of Africa. We did an early film scoring class on Out of Africa. So both of those came out in 1985 along with this. So we should get over there, don't you think? You want to go to Florence? I mean, I've always wanted to go to Italy, so I think now's a good time to go to Italy. We're going to be going to Fiesole, which is an area above Florence. And this is the scene we're going to be looking at, the very famous romantic kissing scene. I'm giving it away, but we'll get there in a few minutes. But look how beautiful this is. James Ivory, the director, born in Berkeley, actually. So he's American, graduated from USC Film School, and meets Merchant. And the Merchant Ivory Productions goes back to 1961, where that's when it was founded between them, and they made 44 films together, and 23 of them were scripted by Ruth Power Jabala, and in some capacity. So the trio of them really created a new genre of filmmaking of romantic British period pieces. Room with a View, along with Remains of the Day and Howard's End. They did those too, so they kind of had their niche. James Ivory actually was the oldest person to win an Academy Award for writing for Call Me By Your Name just a few years ago. So at the age of 89, so he's still active. Merchant died a while ago, but the two of them came up with some really great films, if you like that kind of stuff. So, okay, so what's it about? It's actually kind of pretty much a room with a view, although they start without a view. So Lucy is Helena Bonham Carter, and is with her cousin chaperone Maggie Smith, and they find themselves in Florence. The movie starts off with them in Florence, and they don't have a view in their room. First world problems, right? But they meet these two, this father and son. They meet them for dinner later on, just casually, and they say, "Why don't you take our room? It has a view," and they're very gentlemanly about that. And the four of them kind of become friends along with some other people, and they take this trip to the fields for the afternoon. During this, Helena Bonham Carter and Julian Sands are falling in love. She's from a strict, repressed English background, and he's a free-thinking philosopher, romantic philosopher, so she's intrigued and he's intrigued. So you know where this is kind of going. They go back to England, and she's set to be engaged and marry Daniel Day-Lewis's character, Cecil, and who's hilarious because he's very arrogant and pompous, and she doesn't love him. It's kind of, but these were in the days where people wouldn't marry for love. They would marry for convenience, or, arranged marriages were happening. I mean, marrying for love is kind of a new thing in the last, sometimes it works out. I'm not saying it never works out, but I mean, marrying for love is kind of a newer 20th century idea, perhaps. So she doesn't love him, and she hooks up with Julian Sands a little bit later, and they end up together, of course, because these movies usually wrap up nicely, and they honeymoon in Florence, where they originally met, so pretty romantic. The music, mostly all by Puccini, who was considered the greatest composer of Italian opera after Verdi. Puccini we haven't done a class on, just wrote some of the La Boheme is probably his most famous opera, but I mean, Madame Butterfly, hugely successful operatic composer. And the main piece they use in this is O mio bambino caro, which is Oh My Dear Papa. And it's a soprano aria from his opera in 1918. And it's opera in this works so beautifully. So that's the soundtrack to the movie. Mostly it's all Puccini's music. So what scene are we going to look at? Let's take a look at the scene. This is, like I said, when they go on a day trip to Fiesole, a scenic place above Florence, and they picnic, and the men and women picnic in separate areas because that's how it was back then. But Lucy asks the driver to take her to her friend, but instead the driver leads her to George, where George is standing alone in this field. The scene's perfectly set for romance. And so he drops her off, and then we see George in the field, and he's kind of waiting for her because they have had some conversations before, but they're mostly making eye love contact with each other up until this point. So let's take a look at this scene. I'm going to back it up a little bit. We're not going to score this whole thing, but I'll back it up a little bit so we can just kind of get into the scene.
Dove, Mr. B, pardon. Buoni uomini.
I have a theory that there is something in the Italian landscape which inclines even the most stolid nature to romance.
It reminds me somewhat of the country round Shropshire, where I once spent a holiday at the home of my friend, Miss Apesbury.
And I divine it, Charlotte. You had an adventure there. Vain to deny it.
So this is possibly one of the most romantic scenes in film history. People have said that this is their favorite. This is when George kisses Lucy, and it's in an Italian poppy field, and the background is from Puccini. That's the music that we're hearing, and that was written in 1917. So we won't talk too much about kissing, but you can see that he embraces her and kisses her with such warmth and sweetness and love and affection, and that's what she's yearning for. That's what everybody yearns for usually. So it's highly romantic. Let's take a look at the scene without the music. Still very romantic, but could be awkward, right? I mean, usually these scenes sometimes, I mean, as we know, as we talk about every week, the music enhances the passion going on, as opposed to the director saying, hey, why don't you go over and give her a kiss? Okay, I will. Okay, cut, that was great. Then in the editing room, let's look at that scene. Okay, let's put some opera to it. Okay, all of a sudden magic happens. It becomes so much more intensely romantic and just lovely and beautiful. So this is your job. Your job is to find a piece of opera, a romantic opera, okay? You're gonna have to listen to a little opera for this. And here's the other thing. I've noticed that this is fine, but we're gonna be stopping this as of now. I know some of you have been sending me kind of YouTube tracks, so some of the links you've been sending have, an hour, 2 hour, and they YouTube kind of generates tracks. And I go in and find the right track, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want you to actually pick the piece. So if you do send me a link with 10 tracks in it, you're gonna have to tell me which track you want to use, because I want you to find a romantic opera piece and say, this is the piece that I want. So don't just send me a link that's an hour long with romantic opera music. I want you to really listen to and find a minute-long piece of something that's really beautiful opera, because that shows me that you're listening to the piece. You're not just Googling romantic opera and sending it to me. So this is going to be a little tough, but I mean, this is how we get better each week. I don't just throw these movies out there. I throw them out there with purpose. I hope to. That's what I want. I want us to learn and grow each time. So find the romantic operatic scene, that music to go with this scene. I know you're going to do a great job, so get your romantic skills going and find something. You know, it can be contemporary opera, but it's got to really fit this scene, because the scene is one of the best kisses in cinema, one of the most romantic scenes in the history of cinema. It's whether you like it or not, it's just captures you know, at your heartstrings, or something like that. Okay, get it to me by tomorrow, and you know, I'm here to help. So anything I can do to help, but just don't send me a long track. So send me the piece that you want. Okay, love you, miss you, excited for a great week coming ahead, and it's just going to be great. Okay, see you tomorrow.